Next on our program, we have our guest speaker, Dr. Emmanuel Taban. Dr. Taban is a pulmonologist whose work came to prominence in 2021 with his breakthrough treatment of very ill hypoxemic COVID-19 patients, that is, those suffering from low oxygen levels in their blood. He's a qualified doctor who received his degree in 2004 at the Medical University of Southern Africa, Medunsa. He certified as a pulmonologist in 2018 from Wits University. He's the author of the book, The Boy Who Never Gave Up. He was chosen as the Africa Person of the Year in 2021. The London-based New African magazine named him one of the 100 most influential Africans in 2020. I can go on and on. Let me rather stop here and let Dr. Taban come and talk to us about determination, self-reliance, resilience, and leadership, drawing from his book, The Boy Who Never Gave Up.
Thank you so much, Grace, for the kind introduction. But I think you missed the most important aspect of my career. I'm actually alumni for University of Pretoria. I did my master's for internal medicine at University of Pretoria. That's what actually what set me apart. Thank you. That's the problem with Google. You don't get all the facts. But I would like really to acknowledge Vice Principal, Professor Duncan, and Dr. Grace for the opportunity. And also, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I feel privileged today, standing here, addressing you. But you know what's the most important, what I see? I see only Africans. I don't see anything else. I don't see people from Cameroon, Nigeria, you all look the same. If you walk on the street of Europe, you all African. And you only carry one thing as Africans. Do you know what is it? Helplessness. People who cannot provide for themselves, people who cannot develop their own continent, but people who hold degrees. And that's the sad reality about me standing here as an African. But first, as I stand here, it's so hard to believe that as I stand in front of you today, I'm a father, husband, and that's one of the leading pulmonologists in the country. That once I was a South Sudanese refugee street child, that I, the very same person who you see here today, who recently been named the 100 most influential Africans of 2020, African Person of the Year 2021, and also a nominee for 2022 Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity, once has no shelter, no food, no family, and no future. Often as I sit in my desk at my office at Mediclinic Midstream Hospital, I think back to the time in my life when I was destitute, a boy who spent many days and nights alone on the road, in prisons, sleeping on the pavement without any idea where my next meal will come from. Even to me, the life I have lived, the challenges that I have overcome, compared to the life I live today, sometimes feel unreal, almost like a movie, and to many of you, may even seem unbelievable. I have recently been celebrated by medical fraternities and media across the world for using the therapeutic bronchoscopy as a rescue treatment for critical ill ventilated COVID-19 patients. I have published best-selling books, The Boy Who Never Gave Up, and I'm simple, hardworking man. I'm not used to all this. And so despite all the television, the radio interviews, and all the applause I've received of lately, I can never forget where I come from. So, I'm from South Sudan. I don't know how many people know, but I saw that I have my countrymen there. And South Sudan is one of the nearest countries in the world. So I want just to upload a book, which is about 264 pages. And it's up to you to go and get and read it. But I want to share to you, why am I standing here today? And I always think visual images are the best. Yes, I was born into helplessness. So, what does that mean? My mother was pregnant with me 6 months down the line. She divorced my father because my father saw a yellow bone and left my mother. So, then for all intents and purposes, I become fatherless child from day one. And of course, my mother was uneducated. She left school at 2 years old. And as a result, we moved to the village. And there was no school. The school only was built when I was about 7 years old. I started school. And after studying school, what my mother believed in education, but she also believed in God. So we spent our times going to school, but then of course war broke out. And when there's a war, nobody goes to we spend our time in church. And this was our life in South Sudan. It's beautiful, isn't it? But I want to tell you, most of our governments, they all got PhD from Oxford, US. They're all educated. There were one sitting like you also in the class. But that's where Africans live. If you go to every city in Africa, that's where we are. The reason is that because we can't transfer what we have learned here and bring solution to that. But we're quick to pray to God. And my point is, where is God? We're all Christian, don't we? Muslims? We agree. So why is Africa's like that and Europe is beautiful? Are we basically saying God is racist? I think most of you will agree, isn't it? Because if God is not racist, why we can't transform that into something meaningful? Because all of you today sitting here, you are equal to any Chinese, Japanese, Americans, Europeans. You're all in the same levels. You got the same degree. You are not disabled. But then, how do you explain that? So for sure it's not God. So means there's a problem with us to actually find solution to our problems. And that's, I think, for me, is our problems. And that always puzzles me. And one of the problems is this. That's my country, South Sudan. We've been in war for the last 4 generations. First, we fought the British. Second, we fought the Arabs. And thirdly, we fought a tribal war. Dinkas against Nuer. And the list goes endless. And those problems could have been addressed. And the people who were fighting, because I'm educated, one of you, when you go back to your village, you become a single-eyed person in the land of blind. And everybody asks you for directions. And the best you could do, mobilize them to support you when you get caught doing corruption. Because you think when you steal, it's yours. When you get caught, it's all the village that is involved. And that's a sad reality about us as Africans. And this is current what we see in South Africa. Is oppression. I can't even pronounce it. But what they do, they hunt illegal immigrants. But let's be honest. Is it the illegal immigrant that's the problem in South Africa? The answer is no. You can send the illegal immigrant, put them in the sea. Still, this unemployment will not change. Why? Because people are unproductive. What's the current problem in South Africa? fatherless male, unskilled, unproductive, with no direction. Until you address that, it's a problem. So I was a fatherless child. So it's not South African problems, it's African problems. Because there's no mentors. We are born just hoping that you become something live. Yes, my mother was lucky. I was the fourth child. I become something. So she won the lotto. But majority of children, they might not win the lotto. They will struggle. They might get killed during their early childhood because the future is never guaranteed. But again, Africa is a rich continent where the most poorest people live, unfortunately. And we're very proud of that. So, this is in South Sudan. So, of course, when I was in the village, the war begins. We fighting the North. But what was the funny part? The soldiers that were fighting with the rebels, they were black like me. The rebels that were fighting with the government, they are black like me. So I didn't understand why are they fighting. For me, it didn't make sense. And the past was related against religion, but could have been more than that. And then I had a choice. At the age of 15, I converted to Islam and I left the country. But those who didn't leave the country, this was the picture that was taken Upper Nile. Because of the war, nobody could cultivate. Everybody was hungry. So when you think you're hungry, the bird also is hungry. It's waiting for him to die so they can eat him. And this is the reality about Africans. But we never learn from it. Because you see it somewhere else in Sudan. But today, Mozambique, there also this war. Mali, there's a war. South Africa is coming. Zimbabwe will come. Why? But here we're sitting, highly educated individuals with a lot of possibility, a lot of potentials. What are we doing wrong? Why can we not have stability for a change? So, my second is called Choose Uncomfortable over Comfort. So, in 1994, I left South Sudan under unusual circumstances. I was in the north, taken to study Islamic religion. And I decided I want to go back to my family in Juba. So I was trying to run away, and I found myself in Eritrea with no passport, no documentation. But I want to tell you, if you're in Europe today, you are German, you go to Austria, nobody asks you for ID document. But in Africa, when you cross the border, you must produce documentations. But I say you guys look the same. But obviously, we have certain kind of intelligence as Africans. We spend our time to see how we look different, how the Zimbabwean must look different from South African. We have all those details. How do the Mozambican must look different from Tanzanian? Instead of actually sorting out our problems, see how can we benefit our society. And that was missing. And as a result, I was put in prison at the age of 16. I spent 3 months. And then after spending 3 months in prison, because I was a minor, I was handed over to UN. And they paid for my hotel for 1 month. Then I was given choice to go to refugee camp and spend 5 years and be resettled to US. That was 1995. And I asked them, 5 years, I'm 16. In 5 years, I'll be 21 years old. And that means if I go to US, I'll become a laborer for the rest of my life. So I choose the comfort life of staying in refugee camp over the streets. So I become a street child in Asmara, sleeping outside, in doorways, and until I found one of the South Sudanese who have traveled throughout the world, and he took me to an organization to raise funds. So I was given money, like you guys, you all were given money to stay here. You're all well-dressed, you look lovely. So, life was great. I became too comfortable. But the universe will always remind you that you're too comfortable. You need to take a step. And sooner, my colleague got a lady pregnant. Now he wanted more money. And that time, one of our rebel leaders, Dr. John Goering, came to Asmara. And guess what? He gave me $500, and he gave me $500. When we were going to a hotel, he beat me up and took half of my money. So from there, I was angry. I was dejected. I decided I was going to leave. And I left, and I said, I'm going to go to Kenya to get an education, country where people could speak English. I went to Kenya. Until I arrived to Moyale, I found Kenyans were more cruel than the Eritreans. Was beaten up. My money was taken. I lost everything. And as rule number one in life, when you lost everything, you must step back and reset. Your priority must change. Your immediate needs must change. You must adapt to the situation. So I made a conscious decision to go back to Asmara, walking or whatever it is. And I did that. I'm that kind of person. If you ask me, let's go to Hartfield, I'm not going to wait for the car if I got no car. I'm going to start walking. If I find leave on the way, yes and good. If I'm not, at least I'll be there. But you know what's the funny part? You wait for your car. You might not go anywhere. But at least throughout my journey, I could have seen a lot of things on the way. And I could have been much more smarter. And of course, I went until Addis Ababa. I got stranded. I spent about 8 weeks as a street child. And that time, I prayed. I had a New Testament given to me by missionaries. I was praying, reading the Psalm like a madman. But you know what? God just abandoned me. He just turned his ears against me. Because when I was born, I was taught if you ask, you'll be given. And finally, something came to my mind, that the Bible that was sent to Africa didn't have instruction. We just take it and grab it and we read it. And that time, I put my Bible in my pocket, and I said, I'm going to go and look for help. I started walking, asking for anybody who looks like me. And I find someone who was close to my family. He was a doctor, who my uncle married his sister. I spent 3 days after writing him letters. Whenever he dropped out, he always looked away reading newspaper to avoid me. I think I understand. I look dirty. I had the same clothes for 2 months. I have absolutely nothing. And I went for somebody who didn't know me, but he was willing to help me. And immediately I could get help, I started walking back up to Eritrea. A month later, I left to Eritrea. You can't believe. I found $500 through the Catholic Caritas. So sometimes in life, you might need to go and start all over again. And for me, at that moment, I didn't fail on my journey, but I made mistakes. And my biggest mistake was try to cross African because I think I was African. I didn't have any documentation. As a result of that, I made conscious decisions. Someone say, I will help you to get Ethiopian passport. And I was sold Ethiopian passport for $50. And I left Ethiopia. I went to Kenya. Arrived, met my uncle. Life was great for 3 days again. And I got exactly the same question. Refugee camp. 5 years to America. But I was 17. What would I do in refugee camp at that time? Absolutely nothing. I was angry. I was dejected. I told my uncle, actually, after drinking a Coca-Cola, I said, no, I'm going to South Africa because it was made in South Africa. But today, you all sitting here, you will drink a Coke, you will not even bother to read where it's made from. You will get a book, you will not bother to read it because it sounds boring. But you don't know what is actually meant for you to have that book. all of us, there are signs all written all over the place. It's up to you to interpret. Different sign means different thing for different people. It's up for you to find it your own way. You must choose your own signs. You must start reading your stars. In the Bible, we are taught about the wise men looking at the stars and follow those directions. The same parable applies to you in your career. And it's up to you to look up to it. Otherwise, you will always remain helpless Africans. And that's the reality. And then I left Kenya to South Africa. And what I know was a map. You know, when you look at the map, things look so easy. South Africa, you just go this way. But the reality is that when you start walking, it's difficult. I spent 4 months on the road. And when I arrived, I was about 60 kilometers to the border of Komati Port. And that tells you that sometimes you might have to choose uncertain road. Most of you would use the stairs, isn't it? Because it's safe. Me, I use that. Because if I arrive there first, I'll get the jackpot. For you going there, there are thousands of you. Whatever you find, you must share. And poverty will engulf you forever. So sometimes you have to be adventurous. Use your career to change your life. These are us and Africans with dreams, day in, day out. I used to do that until I get headaches. That's the reality, and nothing changed. You can drown yourself in your sorrows. Then the psychiatry will make money out of you. That's the reality. So, the choice is yours. Or you can get up and start doing it. Take a move. Get out of there. Do something in your own life. So, this was me. I was sitting here, next 60 kilometers to Bell Bridge. But guess what? There were a lot of Somalians, Ethiopians, Eritreans, all were going to South Africa. And I was conscious about my dark color of skin. I always think that if you're black, God does not like you. And that was always in my head. The fairer you become means you become favorite to God. So I say, going there, being on my color, it's easy for me to be picked up as compared to Eritrean and Ethiopian. So I make conscious decision. I make a U-turn. And when 165 kilometers from Bell Bridge, going to Bell Bridge in Zimbabwe. Yes, most of you today here, you would, if you hear the shortcut is 5 kilometers, you will go 5 kilometers, isn't it? It's logical. You know, why should you have to suffer going so much long? But that was the right decision I ever made. When I arrived in Bell Bridge, there was no security guard. I just walked through because everything is far. And I found myself in South Africa. Everybody that went through Komati Port almost got arrested in respect of their colors. So sometimes you might need to make hard choice. And sometimes when you're told that the answer is 100% that, please go for the 0.01%. Because if you get that right, you will have everything in your life. And I always think that our problem in Africa, we always go for the obvious. And that's where our problem is. The obvious, because doctors make money, I'm going to go become a doctor. And how myopic is that? Because we are all meant to be different, with different kind of purpose. So, most of you, when you see the door is open, you more likely wanted to choose the open door. For me, I'll choose the closed one or the narrow one. Because you never know what trap is waiting you on the other side. So, when I arrived in South Africa, I spent 3 nights as a street child again. and I got help by missionaries. And I work in the farm. I work in the garden as a gardener. I did work in the construction company. And the funny part, I work, and the guys were Mozambican. And you know what they did to me? I have to carry sand on my head up to second floor. But I didn't quit. I didn't want to show them that I'm a quitter. I carry. When I went home, my neck was painful. And I went to look for another job. Gardening, I do my job to best of ability. And something came to me saying, because my mother told me I was intelligent. So I still believe in her. Women are capable of knowing the talent of their children. And one of the priests asked me, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to go to school. Then he said, but as a refugee, when you leave your country, you don't have time to pack your belongings, your certificates, your any small thing. You just live with absolute nothing. That's a sad reality about being a refugee. And I have nothing to prove to the world that I ever been to school, except a piece of broken English. And they told me, how can we know that you've been to school? Any Joburg school in Joburg could not take me. So through connection, I was taken to the border of Swaziland. And I asked them, only I want to see the maths textbook, as though the schools were all made out of mathematics. So I saw the maths textbook. I said, now I'm going straight to standard 9. But I only did 5 years of school in South Sudan. He said, standard 9? I said, yes. I went. Maths was not a problem. I studied from morning until the following day, until I get the answer right. And then I have to do languages. Now, language is something that you cannot fake it. Means either if you don't have proper background, you don't get that language properly, English and or Afrikaans. So I took a brave texture. I have to do second language. I tried Sutu, was difficult. Zulu was difficult. I say, you know what? What's the language of business in South Africa? It's Afrikaans. So I decided to do Afrikaans as a second language. I passed it with 48%. Nowadays, the pass mark is 30%, not 40 anymore. Okay, so 48 was very good, was a fail, but it was good. So I finished, of course, I went to my guardian Joburg, and I was asked, what do you want to do? Then I look at him, I say, engineer or doctor. Wow. Then he said, okay, go to Wits University and see what you can get. I went to Wits University, that was in January 1997. And in front of me, there was a white girl. And she flipped her results. Her average was 74. My average was 54, but I was a top candidate in that area. I was well celebrated. This guy from South Sudan who did so well in matrix, and we were a class of 24. And I was the top, and 2 were close to me. The rest were below. Ask yourself, 20 of those South Africans could not get anywhere. So I wonder why people are still surprised while we're having Operation Dudela or whatever it is. It's born out of that. Because there come a foreigner, sit in class with you, pass, going to university, but you are going to become a security guard in your own land. How do you feel about that? Isn't that what all Africans are all angry about? They see Europeans coming to Africa, they do well. No, they're taking all our goods. The Chinese are the next coming. They come, take all our resources, and we get angry. Why do you get angry? It's not your resources. It's just because you are black, you think it's your resources? I mean, imagine you sitting on the top of a diamond, you don't know that's a diamond. Whose problem is that? It's yours, because you have education, and you fail to educate your own children, and to focus to developing your own youth. You are young. That's where our problem is. And that was my problem. So I knew for the fact that I couldn't go to University of Wits. And then somebody directed me and said, go to Technikon. I went to Technicon. I got accepted to electrical engineering. And then I was so excited. I asked the dean, why do they not want to take me at WITS instead of WITS Technicon? And of course, one of the things was there was also a stereotype. At WITS Technicon, most of the students were black, while at University of Victoria, everyone was almost white that particular moment. And I said, no, that cannot be right. I belong to where the white belongs. I also want to do my degree there. And he said, no, your marks is too low. I said, if that's the reason, then I'm going to do matric. But there was only one problem. I was 20 years old already. I have no documentations because South Africa don't issue refugee documents on time. I didn't have the money, and I was fatherless. But I was determined that I want to complete my school. That was the reality. I wanted to. So I went, and there was a school next to me called JP High School for Boys. And I went there to the door. When I went, everybody that went in was all white. So my blackness kicked in. So I decided, no for me. So I decided to go to Kensington, where there were blacks Indian. But when I went to the headmaster, I was told my students get exactly the same marks. Then I said, holy shit, he can't help me. So I decided to go back to the JPI School for Boys. And then I met the teacher in the door. Then he said, dude, we only take people who are 18 years old, who are at least 16 years old, and you should not have done matrics, and you need to have money. Don't waste your time. Then I look at him and say, no, I want to see the deputy headmaster or the headmaster. I want to hear from them. What are they going to tell me? And he said, there's a door open, he's there. I saw him walking, a nice short guy, big tummy, walk in. So I said, oh, awesome. I walked straight with him, and he said, sit. I sat, and I just put my marks in front of him. Then he looked at me. He thought I was looking for a job. I said, no, I want to improve my marks because I want to become a doctor. Then he looked at me, and he kept quiet. After 20 minutes, he said, come on Monday. That was on Friday. On Monday, I came back again. He hoping that I would not come. I came back again. And he decided he's going to give me a chance to do matric. But if you look, the odds were all against me. That was the reality. So most of you are going to be encountering a lot of difficulties. That's how life it is. Life is never meant for you to lie on the beach 24/7. The body is not meant to be rested. The body is just like a machine. You have to use it. You have to work it. That's why we got brains. But the problem that we always think God will do it for us. And I always tell you, if you live, the first picture, that was when God is around. But if you work, the place will change. So you have to change the place, it's not God. And it's our duty to make sure that we create that meaningful change in Africa. You are the younger generation to do that, to think differently. And sometimes you'll find the door closed. But you know what? Look through the keyhole or push it gently. And if you haven't done that, don't leave. And if you find there's a wall, try to climb above the wall. But make sure you don't get shot, okay? So, what's our problem? Fear. You guys probably seen a lot of this diagram. Comfort zone. But, I always say I disagree with these comfort words. I would like to call this comfort zone as helplessness. Some of you who have done psychology, let me tell you this. That was the first psychology I did in medical school. It was very interesting. It was a research done by one of the German. What he did was he took a dog and put in the cage, and he tortured him with electricity. The first time he tortured, the dog cried. The second time, he cried. Third time, fourth times, he accepted it. Then he took the same dog and put it in open place with a dog that is not tortured. When he tortured the dog that was tortured, he just slept there. And when he tortured the other one, he jumps out. How different is that from us, from African? Assume that today you all be sitting here, a lovely place. You go back. For those who come from South Sudan, you go back, you move to your mother house where there's no water, no toilets, no facilities. But guess what? You could speak nice English and you have certificate. There's a beauty about it. And guess what? When you sit down, you complain, this government is not doing 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. And then you remember at 5 o'clock you must go to toilet. But you must go to the pit toilet. You go and sneak in. And then the following day you might not want to eat much because you don't like the dirty toilet. And you might not even use the toilet. And after a week, 2 weeks, you accepted your circumstance. You start behaving like everybody around. And I urge you guys not to fall in that trap. And that's been a problem for the 100 years generations. People, when they go to Europe, to Oxford, they study, they come back, they never do something. Their degrees is worth nothing. And I always like the movie in the Black Diamond. You know, you guys watch Black Diamond? There's something about Leonardo saying, you are just an African man without a white person. Because we make ourselves to feel that way. Because we never value. And today, look at you. There are many of you. If you get stuck, what's the best you could do? You have people of different discipline here. Why not keep a WhatsApp? If you get stuck with something, call your colleague that you studied together and find solution. But you rather not do that. You rather become a victim. Or the best is to open a church. And I always like it when the Nigerian or Malawian come open church in South Africa. I mean, think about it. If you're God, where is God needed? Not in Malawi where the poverty is. Nigeria. Let's be honest. Why do you think this God is needed in South Africa? It's just because of the mindset of people. And that's the reality about us. So, this is real. But majority of you will not attempt it. And you will not attempt that if your mindset is not right. Means if you got no plan, you will not attempt that because you're going to fall down. And that's the reality. Until you program your mind, success is a state of mindset. Development is a state of mindset. Always when I go to Rome, I always tend to get into kind of depression with my wife. I look at the Colosseum. It was 300-400 years old. And you wonder, how did they build it? Then you ask, but where the hell is my great-grandfathers? And I know most of you are going to say, oh, no. They've been hunted as slaves. No, they were not. Because they were hunted as slaves. Do you know why? Because they were the useful slaves to build America and Europe. Because they have that energy. But yes, the same thing. We can't catch our own people to build Africa. You understand? If you go to US was built by Africans. Europe was built by Africans, even though they were slaves. They cut the bricks. They laid the foundation. They dig the holes, the trains, everything. But you have to Africa, there's absolutely nothing. And I'm always saying, yes, slavery happened a few years ago. But what does have to do with you that must limit you? Yes, 300 years ago, the people didn't have knowledge. But what does that have to do with you? If you think you're angry with slavery, then do something. Be innovative. Let's build up the place. Because end of the day, you're only going to be respected based on where you come from. Today, you get a lot of the clean road because you come from University of Pretoria. University of Pretoria has given you a platform for you to be able to talk to a lot of people. When I graduated as a medical doctor at the University of Pretoria, I went to a town called Secunda. And there, when the Afrikaners patient come to me, they say, University of Pretoria, they don't have issue of seeing you. Your color disappeared. They focus on you because they think you come from Europe, Pretoria, you know. And underneath there is Medunsa, which is a black university. It became a hurdle, but people, that University of Pretoria override the Medunsa part. And that's a sad reality. It's all stereotype. But you are given a perfect platform to become something in your life. But that something in your life is offered to you through this master's scholarship. And most of you who study through the scholarship, one day, when you become something in your life, you forget that there's young people who need a certain scholarship. You fail to establish the same scholarship to help the young ones who are coming because you want to be the only one. And in fact, when you look at most news in South Africa, they always tell you about black excellency. My point that what make us think that we're excellent? Is it the fact that our people staying in poverty? Or the fact that because you have grown out of nowhere and you become something in your life, does that supposed to make you proud? No, we must change the place. If you haven't changed the place, if you can't transform Soweto into something, then we have problems. Then we shouldn't be smiling. We have the brain. The only difference between you, I always say, there will be a child born here in South Africa, one in Japan, one in UK, one in US. But guess what? They all will have, from their birth, if they're born all in the same place, the outcome will be the same. Even the black child sometimes will do very well. I went to Europe. I written a lot of exams in Germany. I did the top candidate. But when I come home, I can't replicate what I have because I have no people to work with. People have different mindsets because nothing good coming out of a black person. Everything good is supposed to be coming from Europe. Until you start to believe in your own, Africa will never change. And by the way, and that's most of you with a degree. Most of you think that if you get a degree, I'll give you this funny story. I have one of the colleagues who was quite a well-educated individual that joined us. He was having 5 years experience as a pulmonologist. So during the COVID, we brought him to work with us. And then because I assumed that he is senior, so I paired him with a white junior doctor. But because the white junior doctor has been working with me for about 2 years. And then what had happened that in her institution, she was sitting in the office, making direction like a traffic officer. So she is unable to do the work. Now, when patient needs to be ventilated, she couldn't do 1, 2, 3. And guess what? Because she worked with this junior white person, the first thing was to say, the reason I'm not doing well because he's racist. It's a nice term. It's a nice cut to keep on your back pocket. But racism is not real. It's only real when you internalize it. You understand? You make it real. It's like perception. Today when I say, go out to the door, and I say in the door, when you walk out, you're going to find red BMWs. Chances are good that you start looking for red BMW and you will end seeing all over the place. Racism is the same. Stereotype is the same. So please don't fall into that trap. When you ever get encountering problems, see it as an opportunity to innovate. And I always say, you'll be sitting down, I'll be walking, and I kick your leg by mistake. Whose mistake is that? Is it mine or yours? It's yours. Why did you keep your leg there? Why were you sitting there in the first place? You understand? Just think about it. Because you can only solve problems if you are the problems. If you take responsibility for your failures, then you will be able to succeed in it. That's how the mind works. In my life, I found that the mind only works when you accept responsibility. Now, there are two things. There are people that are very honest. They'll always do everything according to the box. And there are people who are very dishonest. They'll always be. And you will ask, like you go to Cape Flat, where there's a lot of gangs, all of them carrying a cross, and they believe in it, and they will actually dodge that bullet. So is it God? No. I always say there are two things. Is spiritual is different story. But as a human being, the choice is yours. You must make that choice about your life. And most of you, when you finish, you get your degree, you think that you're in the mountaintop. You're going to ask your mother to finish all your small money to celebrate. Isn't it? Because the big doctor is at home. But you forget that you are just a small fish down there. That's what the degree offers you. But you still need to walk to the top of the mountain. And when you walk to the top of mountains, either you'll be there or you're going to fall before you reach to the top. And that's the reality about life. So degree, if you haven't worked, imagine you have not worked like my colleagues. You're going to blame everything. You blame the machines. You blame the x-rays. You blame whatever is given to you for failing you. Until the day you're saying, listen, when I was in UP, I was in class. Now there's a different reality about being in the class and being on the field. So I urge you, please, when you finish your qualification, whatever you are, go to the field work and start as junior. If you're an engineer, learn how the technician do the work. If you're environmental, maybe you must learn to garden first before you start doing landscaping. If you're doing road construction, try to go and dig the road and then see how difficult it is. Because if you learn those basic principles, then you will succeed in life. And that's what had happened to me. I spent my time throughout my journey as a junior. Before COVID came, I spent time in Europe. I want to promise you, when you go to Europe to get a skill, they will give you that skills. They'll never hide from you. Do you know why? Because they know that you'll spend your time looking at the buildings and you will never take that skill home and you'll never use it. And that's where our problem is. So take those skills and start fiddling. Try it. And that's the part I love about the Chinese. Have you bought Chinese watch? Buy one 5 years ago and 5 years later. It's different. They'll give you argument and say, oh, but that's Focom. And then guess what? In 5 years' time, it worked nice. So don't start to be perfect. Try. Lay the first bricks. If you fail in it, you learn from it, and then you perfect it. So don't wait for the perfect storm to start doing stuff. Try earlier, please. Whatever you can. Use your degree. Apply those principles to change. And please, don't look for literature from West. You know, during COVID-19, we are told that patient, if you do bronchoscopy, is going to spread the disease, and there's no mucus plugs. So my patients were dying. So I decided to do the bronchoscopy. And when I did one, people were dying because they were mucus plug. Not every patient, but majority of patients. So it means they were not actually factual about that. They just from previous history. So the question is that literature is there to guide you. But apply those principles to your own path. The research you think is somebody who probably was the same class as you, now is staying in America, he got the data and publishing it. And nobody starts research out of nothing. Your research is basically what you have thought of. You just want to prove it. Finish. I wanted to go to point B, and that's why I'm going to do research. How do I walk up to there? So what prevents you from doing that? Why do you think we must get one from America or Europe? We are different in Africa, so let's produce our own African research. And you have capacity to do that because you guys are well qualified from UP. So, happiness and during graduation. Can you see? That's your plan, reaching to the point. But the reality is, look at the roads. It's never straight. Because when you go back to your countries, especially the one coming from South Sudan, You must answer to the military who have never been to school. You must get permission from him. What does he know? Nothing. So you have to find a way to work through him. Otherwise, it's a dream. And that's the issue that we have in South Africa. You must answer to somebody who doesn't even know it. And that was when I finished university. I wanted to buy a Ferrari. That was my dream. But this was my real car. I bought it for 5,000 rand with no aircon. But I was proud about it. Though I couldn't get a girlfriend that time. But you know what? It got me somewhere. I was never broke. And all of us want to be elephants, isn't it? Powerful, like powerful nation of the world. But the reality is that we are just this, a small ant. But guess what? When an elephant sees an ant, he goes to his own knee. So, look at this ant, work tirelessly. And if they are together, they're actually more forceful. So if you work together, you can change the continent. How do you like that phrase? Rich continent where the most poorest people live on earth. Do you guys agree? When I left South Sudan, I was 100% sure that Africa was cursed, that God did this service for Africans. Until my journey, I believe no, God actually did his bit. It's us who failed the continent. I'll show you. Look at Africa. Oil, gold, South Sudan even got grain, oil, gold, and whatever is there. But it's one of the poorest people. The first picture I saw you, where a child going to get eaten by bird, in South Sudan. But there we are. So clearly it's never about the land. It's about the people mindset. That's the reality. So, one thing I promise you guys, 200 years time, there will be other Africans living here. And if we do one thing, early childhood education, proper basic educations, and give them opportunity like you guys, will change the continent and we can explode. And nowadays, whenever we find oil, we fight each other. That's the reality. And if you look, tell me, these are all African countries. Have you seen any poor right here? No, they're all rich country. South Africa's richness only was explored because they were European in South Africa. If it was left for Africans, I always say before the Europeans come to Africa, we use the gold to throw at each other. And that's the reality. And that's what happened. You go to Malawi, you go to South Sudan, you go everywhere, the poverty is still there. And we all cry, Chinese are taking our things away. No, they are not, because you guys are not doing enough. You guys are not innovating. You guys are, you just go and you want to fight for someone who's not educated because you want to have his position. You don't need any position. Chart your own way. Make your own difference. Decide what you want to do. There's enough space for you to become something in your life. And probably in life, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And this is what Africans always have taught. They knew about it, but we never apply it. But if we are united, together we can stand strong. So, the pen is a mitre done, the sword. So, all our problems in South Sudan were all born out of misunderstanding. The fact that I'm Equatorian, one is Dinka, we never wanted to see eye to eye. It's the same thing, the Zulus, whatever in South Africa, you look to Mali, Nigerian, it's more or less the same. It's hatred born out of no reason. It's just because of leadership. And the problem that I want to just quickly tell you about COVID-19. Do you guys understand why Africa has lower mortality with COVID-19? Do you guys really understood it? The reason why Africa survived COVID-19, because Africa has the youngest population in the world. with the average age of 38. Now, COVID-19 does not kill you if you are healthy with normal endothelia. People who died with COVID are elderly people. So which continent loses the most patients? It's Europe, America, then China. So basically, what does COVID-19 do? For you guys think, oh, COVID-19 is horrible. No, COVID-19 actually is giving opportunity for African leaders to appreciate their youth. And today, the youth of Africa is what saved Africa from the COVID-19. But the same youth, if they're not given chance to education, if you guys are not going to devise a plan to make sure that the next generation are educated, the same youths will be the one carrying machine guns, are the same people that are going to break into your house, the same people that are going to burn you alive, and the same people that are going to cause destruction in Africa. So we have chance to do that. And finally, look, that's a diamond from Africa. When it gets processed overseas and shipped back to Africa. There, maybe bought for $10, and now you're paying $1 million. And guess what? Maybe this year, one of you might become a first lady of the president or something, and you say, I needed that. And you find that it's actually from your own country. But you're paying 10 times. But yet we have people from Africa with the same degrees who cannot process all that. So please think again. Be the agent of change. Be that person that can bring the next change to Africa. And that's really the reality. So a few slides. That is Alex, and this is Santon Square. The one commonality between these, they're all corrugated iron on the roof. But there's bricks, there's none. But if you look, all these things coming from the soil here. So there's nothing prevent you to cut a brick and build a better house. It's okay to blame someone for all this, but you can blame to a certain extent. At your levels, you should not be blaming anybody for your problem because you have given all the opportunity to become who you are, to change. But please don't be arrogant. Respect those who are already there. Focus on your own journey and your path. Be with those with like-minded and make sure that you keep your contacts. And University of Pretoria actually have a support groups because you guys are part and parcel history of the University of Pretoria. When you do great, the university excel. When you do bad, the university fall with you because you are their products. And this is in Uganda, fiction beside reality in Africa. Most of you look at here, it's so dirty. But if you given chance, last week I got approached one of the guys from Europe to see if he can get a contract to manage all the waste place in Africa, because he want to turn that into something useful. Some of you are doing environmental, isn't it? So think, don't look at it as dirt. For everything that you see, think about what else can it be. Can you turn it into something? And that's really what I ask from you. And on my final slides, today you have a choice. First thing, take ownership of your failure and learn from your mistakes. Because I believe that you will never learn from your failure. If you could have learned from our failure, then Africa could have been one of the most developed continents because we are failing everything. So please, learn from your mistakes. Stop blaming the colonialism or white or Chinese if you are the reason why Africa is failing. So be that leader that Africa needs. That's what your program is, leadership. Create that leadership. Whatever the Chinese take or white people take or colonialism, whatever, they just took a bit of it. There's still more in Africa. So we need to develop people that could manage it. Bygone, bygone. Let's settle that score later. But for now, let's get our people out of famine. There's no point to look backward. Poverty is temporal until you make it permanent. That I believe in it. I was born poorer. Today I'm not poorer. I'm proud to can say that. And I never stole money from the government. It's through hard work. So you too can do it. Connect with your land and soil. Wearing blazer is not my thing. I'm just wearing it to impress you guys so that I can look important. But the reality is that don't forget your root. The fact that you got masters, please still go farm, grow vegetables. It will be very important when you can do those things. Clean your own gardening, cook, and do all these things. Because if you do that, you will also teach the community around you. Because everybody expects you when you go back to be having a V8 engine, to be having a house, and all that. Please don't do that. Go back to your root and have your principle, have a working plan. Master your basic before you can innovate. So now, if you stay in a place with no toilet, maybe you must dig toilet first before you start building an aeroplane. Okay? Make sure that you have enough supply of food. Make sure that you have clean water, because you'll be thinking of a great idea, then you died of diarrhea or cholera because you have dirty water. So it means your first priority is to make sure that those basic necessities are there. Again, you are never inferior to any race until you decide to do so. It's a choice you make. Today, you are in class with a white student, black student, Indian students. And the reality is that you will probably score more than them. But the question is that, what do you do? So the max score is mean nothing. But what you do, your actions, your steps you take to change your circumstance is what that counts. And lastly, you are not a victim, but you are invictus. So, in principles, when I was 25, I decided certain things, that I'm going to divide my life into halves. First half and second half. All of you watch football, isn't it? And I believe my first half started the day I finished my degree. So my first half started at the age of 25, turning 26. And I've decided, because I grew up with the Combonis who are white, and I see them, they were working all the time. And I told myself, I want to work as hard as possible and see what I can accomplish. Will I still be a helpless African, or will I be the best in what I do? What if I read my book from one page to others and apply that knowledge? And that's all I did on my first half. And all because I want to get married to Beyonce. And I found my own Beyonce. And the second thing, I want to have a car. I want to have a house. And I want to make sure I secure a future for my kids. And that's all I work on my first half. And I actually want to write books, and people told me you're a dreamer. And today, I'm 44, turning 45. In September, I have reached all my goals, and I've exceeded my goals as a first half. Now, next year, I'm moving into my second half. I wanted to do more for the continent. I want to make sure that I need to create change in my own way. I might not defeat all the evil people in Africa, but remember, evil only exists when there's no good person. So be that good person. So, and remember one thing. Yes, you guys are young, but within a blink of an eye, you'll find yourself at the age of 45 with absolutely nothing. Having children, anybody can have kids, but plan your life properly and try to accomplish. When you're young at your age, you could read from morning till the following day, nothing will happen to you. But when you're 45, that's why we never hire, soccer team never take people who are 35, because they cannot do it anymore. So the same thing in life. Don't think that you can change the continent when you're 65. But you cannot change the continent if you cannot get your life right. So get your life for the first half of your life. You can decide what's your first half. Could be from 20 to 40, or could be from 30 to 50, whatever it is. But during your first half, accomplish all your goals. In your second half, give something to the Africa. And extra time, you will be departing this world. And you will die whether you like it or not. It's a part and parcel of life. So please, put this into consideration. Thank you.